Cats move through the world in a way that seems almost effortless. They slip between furniture, squeeze through narrow gaps, leap onto shelves, and land with incredible precision. Even in the dark, when you can barely see anything, a cat walks confidently as if the room were fully lit. And if you've ever watched closely, you might notice something interesting. Right before entering a tight space, their whiskers move forward. Right before jumping, their whiskers spread slightly. It almost looks like they're measuring the world around them, which raises a simple but fascinating question. Why do cats actually have whiskers? And more importantly, what are they really for? But before we uncover the surprising truth, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow and lets us keep explaining the simple things around us that most people never stop to question. Now, back to those whiskers. Most people assume whiskers are just stiff hairs, maybe a decorative feature, something that simply makes cats look more like cats. But that assumption misses something incredibly important. Whiskers are not just hair. They are one of the most advanced sensory tools in the animal kingdom. To understand why, you first have to look at where whiskers come from. Unlike normal fur, whiskers are deeply embedded in a cat's skin. The base of each whisker sits inside a special follicle that is packed with nerve endings. In fact, these follicles are so sensitive that even the smallest movement of a whisker sends signals directly to the brain. That means whiskers act almost like fingertips, or even more accurately, like a radar system. When air moves around objects, walls, furniture, corners, it creates tiny changes in airflow. Humans can't detect these changes, but whiskers can. As a cat walks through a room, its whiskers pick up subtle shifts in air currents bouncing off nearby surfaces. Without touching anything, the cat can sense where objects are. This ability becomes incredibly useful in low light. Cats are well known for their night vision, but even their eyes have limits. In total darkness, vision alone isn't enough. That's where whiskers step in. They help cats build a mental map of the space around them. Think of it as a close-range navigation system. But there's another fascinating detail most people never realize. The length of a cat's whiskers is not random. In many cats, the whiskers on the sides of their face are roughly as wide as their body, which means those whiskers act like a built-in measuring tool. When a cat approaches a narrow opening, like a gap between furniture or a hole in a fence, the whiskers brush the edges first. If the whiskers fit, the body probably will too. If the whiskers bend too much, the cat knows the space might be too tight. This is why cats often pause before squeezing through small areas. It's not hesitation, they're gathering information, and those whiskers are doing most of the work. But this is where things become even more interesting, because whiskers don't just detect space, they also help cats hunt. And the way they do that reveals just how incredibly specialized these tiny hairs really are. There's another moment when whiskers become incredibly important, and it happens during hunting. Cats are natural predators. Even domestic cats that spend most of their lives indoors still carry the instincts of hunters. And when a cat catches prey, something interesting happens. The prey is suddenly extremely close to the cat's face. At that distance, vision becomes much less reliable. The cat's nose, mouth, and eyes are all crowded together around a moving target. If the prey struggles or moves quickly, the cat needs another way to detect exactly where it is. That's where whiskers step in again. The whiskers around a cat's mouth and cheeks can detect tiny movements in the air caused by the prey's motion. Even the smallest twitch can be sensed. This helps the cat know precisely where the prey is positioned, without needing to rely only on sight. In other words, whiskers help cats feel movement right in front of their face, and this becomes crucial when delivering the final bite. Here's what surprises most people. Cats also have whiskers in places you might not expect: above their eyes, on their chin, and even on the back of their front legs. Those leg whiskers, called carpal whiskers, play an important role during hunting. When a cat pins prey to the ground with its paws, these whiskers help detect movement and position. Even if the prey is hidden under the paw, the whiskers can sense if it's still moving. It's an incredibly precise sensory system. But whiskers aren't just tools for navigation and hunting. They also reveal something about a cat's emotions and intentions. If you watch closely, you'll notice that whiskers move depending on how a cat feels. When a cat is curious or focused, its whiskers often push forward. When it feels threatened or defensive, the whiskers may pull back closer to the face. When the cat is relaxed, they rest more naturally at the sides. These subtle movements are part of the cat's body language, signals that other animals, and even other cats, can interpret. But there's one more thing many people don't realize. Because whiskers are so sensitive, damaging them can actually disorient a cat. Cutting a cat's whiskers doesn't cause physical pain in the whisker itself, but it removes an important sensory tool. Without them, cats can become less confident moving through tight spaces and may misjudge distances. It's similar to suddenly losing the sense of touch in your fingertips. This is why veterinarians and animal experts strongly recommend never trimming a cat's whiskers. They aren't just cosmetic features, they are essential equipment. So the next time you see a cat quietly walking through a room, squeezing through a narrow opening, or carefully approaching something unfamiliar, take a closer look at those whiskers. They're constantly moving, constantly sensing, constantly collecting information about the world. Tiny sensors helping the cat understand space, movement, and danger. And once you notice that, it becomes clear that whiskers aren't just one more cute feature of a cat's face. They're one of the most sophisticated tools nature has given them. Because sometimes the smallest details reveal the most fascinating design. And sometimes the simplest things hide the most misunderstood truths.